Right, great. Okay. All right, let's get started. So in case for you guys who are not familiar, Mark is one of the best mind I know in Web3, and I've been working with Mark in the Odyssey DAO community for a while. So Mark, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit for the audience?
Yeah, thanks for that kind welcome. My name is Mark. I'm based in the US and I've been a product manager and community manager for many years, 14 years to be exact. I've worked in startups and big tech, moving from category to category. But the theme that connects everything is really consumer product management experience. My last role was at a company called Wise. It's a smart home tech with physical device, and they hired me as a software PM. So I stayed there for I was there for 3 years. I was also doing community initiatives, so building beta program and go-to-market initiative with community members. And last year, I just fell in love with the mindset of building with community. So I left the job and then started working with DAOs. So today, I spend a lot of time with Odyssey DAO, where I met George, but I'm also helping other founders build their own Web3 communities.
Yeah. So in case you guys don't know, Odyssey DAO is an educational onboarding DAO, and our mission is to onboard 1 million people into Web3. And right now, Mark is basically leading the community there, and he's also the master of DAO masters. So that's another group that focuses on like teaching people how to build DAOs. Yeah, so a lot of cool stuff. You definitely should follow him. Okay. So things like actually a lot of the people in our audience today are actually PM, or I guess aspiring PM. So I guess an interesting thing for them to look at is, maybe just backtrack your personal story a little bit. And it seems that like for your career trajectory, you're kind of following this path about just doing general PM at first, but then later kind of developing a clear interest in doing a lot of things community related, which then kind of naturally leads to Web3, where community has always been a big focus of kind of everything. So just wondering, like, how does that community components get into your PM journey, and how your understanding of it evolves, just because that's kind of a big piece for me to understand, how that leads you into the Web3 whole thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it shifts a lot. So when I was a pure PM, doing my own app releases and product requirements, the way I look at users is more like user research or focus group discussion, where you have like 3 to 4 people, and then you interact with them by asking them questions and then collecting information, and then you try to put that together and come up with your own ideas, right? I think over time that changed a lot when I started building more and more with members. So when I was doing that a lot in my first startup in the US, when I joined Quixi, and then we were doing like mobile app research, restaurant research, and then towards the end, I was even working on like a partnership with like Alibaba. They have the UNOS, so we have to like figure out how to do the search queries. And obviously, I don't know the market, but I was partnering with another PM, and then same thing. We would talk to local users and then collect info. Fast forward like 7 years later, when I moved to Wise, like the process changed. Like we have a public forum, we have Facebook group, and then we would ask questions and post it directly on the group, and then wait for people to reply to that post, and then we would collect the comments together for that post, and then analyze it and then share it back to them. So the difference is, instead of a closed small circle of feedback loop, I've learned how to expand that in a more public way, because when you bring in more people together, that's where a lot of great ideas come to life. So yeah, that really, so and then I hope that answers your question. It really helped me understand how to work with users so that can help me think about product requirements that will feed into the design.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of makes sense, right? It kind of like with doing this like inside the community, you just have access to a lot more users and not just have kind of discussions or maybe something kind of close group discussion once in a while, but constantly have this kind of idea and the discussion bouncing back and forth inside the community, right?
Correct.
Right, but right. So I'm just kind of curious. So when you kind of get started with all this, like it's like doing things community centric way, uh, just a new fashion at that time, or like it's kind of already like developing a little bit, and you're just kind of picking it up? Because yeah, it still sounds pretty like cutting edge to me at this moment, at least.
Yeah, well, like community is not new, right? I mean, especially if you work for like social networks like WeChat, Facebook, TikTok, all of these are community-based product. So obviously, when you work on community-based products, then you always think about community all the time. But for products or whether software or hardware that doesn't have community as a product, it's like one layer separated from community. So for example, like Wise, right? It's a gadgets company. It's a smart home tech company. So no one would
Right.
actually think of it as a community like centric company because that's not what we sell. We don't sell content, right? So like for going back to your comment, George, yes, it's not very common for startups that are not social networks to think about working with community in a transparent way. And it's up to the PM. It's up to you to think about how you can involve more people, right? And then that's something that you have to like learn, and then that's also something that you have to check: is your company okay that you're interacting with your customers in a more group fashion? Because like that is also something that not every company is doing, right? Maybe you have a roadmap or you have an upcoming release that you don't want to share. So of course, if you have some guidelines around that, then you cannot do it as easily. But for us, it's usually improving the product, and like you have to test hardware much earlier in the process. So like people will know anyway earlier. So we do it, and we trust the community to work with us. Yeah. So long story. So in summary, I think it's something that you have to like think about, like in terms of process. What are the process that I can do with the community as a product manager? And then apply that to your own projects.
I see. I see. Just kind of to just kind of last quick questions in terms of that community aspect. So far, like at least for your timing wise, what has been like the best aspect of it, like working with communities as part of product development, as compared to like maybe for your time in Amazon, which I suppose has a much lesser involvement of the community. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, right? Because when like Amazon, so I used to work there for consumer electronics and video games, and then I had to partner a lot with different groups like video game group or Twitch for promotions. And of course, there's like millions of customers there, but Amazon also has so much data that I actually spend most time just looking at database and queries and metrics, and then you lose sight of what's happening out there. So like if you work in big tech companies, then sometimes you have to proactively figure out how to reach out to your customers through your own like your own channels within the group. So yeah, I think it requires the irony is the bigger the company, sometimes the more removed you are from customers. So it's up to you to change that.
I see. Sometimes, even after looking all those data with all the data scientists at your arm, there is still magic just talking directly to the user groups, right?
Yeah.
Basically, I see. I see. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're still doing the course or not, but Mark actually has a course on community-led products development in Maven, right? But you're not teaching anymore, right? Basically.
I'm not, because we changed my life. So now I'm doing something different.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the new part of Mark's life then. All right. So how does this whole thing like kind of fit into you getting to Web3, right? Because I think like in terms of your past 2 years, you you quit Wise 1.5 years ago, and I see you are kind of exploring a bunch of options, I guess, for the next exciting new chapter of your life. And then, it seems that at the end you've been settled at the, Web3 stuff. So kind of what happened, and maybe you can, share a little bit of that, during that 1.5 year with the PM audience.
Sure. So at Wise, I was helping with the software app release, very traditional product management where you think about all the features, build it, develop it, and then schedule the sprints, right? And then as part of that, I slowly tried to work with the community managers and other product managers to think about beta testing. And then in the beta testing, we have to sign up like hundreds of customers for different devices. And then I started doing more and more like customer initiatives and community initiative. And then I realized that when you work with your users much earlier in the process and then you collect feedback earlier, then you can avoid mistakes in your product requirements, right? It can save you a lot of time and effort and help you make sure that you're building something that customers want, but doing it in a bigger scale. So instead of talking to like 5 people, posting it more publicly and having a dialogue will bring in more people, right? For example, here there's like 70 people. If I talk to you about a certain product feature, then I can combine different ideas all at once. So I did that, and then last year, to answer your question, I got very excited with Web3 because the mindset is flipped, right? Like you don't have a product, bring people together, and then you start building stuff or discussing stuff. And as long as you have that mission. So I saw when that happened, looking at like NFTs or DAOs, I became really excited because I said, finally, there's like a way to work differently. And this is something that I was teaching in my course and something that I'm doing at Wise, but in a much different way, because now you also have blockchains involved. So when that happened, I told myself that this is the path that I want to take. And I started, of course, I did the trading parts of it, not very fruitful. Like I bought a bunch of I did my own trading, and then at some point I said, okay, I really want to be a builder, and then DAO is the area that I can associate myself with. I easily understand the mechanics of like what it is to be like a good community member. What are the things that I can add value on, and then I just joined. So DAO Masters was the first one. I hopped around. I joined different discords until I settled with Odyssey, and now I'm actually helping other communities in like where the founders are in Slack. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, that's what I do now. Does that answer your question? I think
For sure, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I said a lot there.
Yeah. All good stuff. Yeah. So I guess it's kind of like a natural continuation, right? Like in Wise, like it's kind of traditional software companies, and then like you're already doing things with community, but still in a more kind of traditional org fashion, right? And then kind of doing things in Web3 kind of takes the community elements in a totally new level, right? So I'm just wondering, like, if we can dive in, a little bit more into the details, how exactly is working community different when you are still in Wise, and how is it now, like you're actually working in a Web3 native, community like Odyssey or DAO Master, what exactly is the difference, the role community plays, in the whole thing? Like, I'm not even sure I should call it a product development, right? But there surely is a lot of difference. So maybe you can, just pick up a little, maybe 2 or 3 of them you think are most important that, highlights the kind of difference in the mindset. Because we chat a little bit when we are in Odyssey DAO, right? Like I was just kind of applying the traditional product development pipelines, pretty standard procedures, checking things all the time with you, and they just, no, that's not the right way to do things, right? So maybe we can just chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, in a company, right, there's like more hierarchy and more processes, and then you have to follow certain guidelines. There's a lot of like top-down approach in working in companies. So what that means is when you work with your community, you usually have an idea a vision and then a set of requirements, and then you collect feedback as you're becoming more clear on what the process on what that product is. And then on the differences when you work in not only in a DAO but in like crypto, like blockchain companies, like usually it's like bottom up, like you try to bring like talented people together and then tell them what the vision is, and then trust that these people can figure something out. So for example, in Odyssey, that is a DAO. What we started with content, right? So there's a lot of free content on the website, but then we decided recently that, hey, maybe it's better not only to have content, but also to have a learning experience together. And then the bootcamp was a collective effort by different people. And then that was also a peer-driven project. So not only was I teaching, there's like 7 other community members who stepped up to the role to actually teach. So going back to your question, there's a difference there because in a company, most likely your resources are within the company, right? You're going to find people from different departments. But in a DAO, you can pick anyone from the pool, like whoever is interested and motivated, they can raise their hand and then they can participate. So if you do it effectively, then your team is essentially your entire community. Although on the other hand, people are not full-time working there. So it's also very hard to find people who are just willing to help because they have their other commitments in their jobs and families. So it's a balance.
I see. Let's see. What would I want to
By the
ask?
way, I see some questions here, so let me know when you.
Okay. Okay, I see. All right, yeah, because I'm kind of postponing them because I do have them, like, but it's kind of the latter part of the conversation. So, but yeah, but I guess we can go to some of them right now.
It's up to you. It's up
Sure.
to you. Just ask me
question. Wait, is that your question or audience question? Okay, let's see. I'm trying to give you guys the background. Okay, what do you think? I don't know. Okay. Oh, now she's getting angry. Okay, let's get started with some of her question. in case she rage quit the Zoom chat. Okay. First question. So, what can PMs from Web2 do right now to continue innovation in Web3 era? All right, that's her first question, I believe.
I think this is it highly depends on what your product is, and it highly depends on what kind of PM you are. So if you're a PM that works heavily with marketing and you're working for a brand heavy company, right? One thing that people do, one thing that organizations or companies do right now is think about, okay, maybe there's something around NFTs that we can do to bring in membership and to increase loyalty to our brand, and then start thinking about it from that angle. NFT can have a lot of purpose or utility. So when people have NFT, you can give them additional perks or benefit, and you can create like a whole membership access, right, to that membership program to that. So that's one like very like specific approach in terms of what you can do. But if you want more of like a framework, I think you should think about what it means to trust and co-design and co-build with your community. So maybe look at your processes right now. Is there something there that you can do and share more openly? And then how do you do that carefully, knowing you have other constraints? So just like looking at the product lifecycle from research, development, design, all the way to launch, and then see what parts of my work right now is something that I can do more with more people in my community. And if you don't have a community, think about how can you create a community where people can learn from each other and then give you feedback so that you build that flywheel where everyone can benefit, right? So I think you should, like, those are 2 examples of like, okay, you have a direct Web3 project, or maybe we can start simple. Maybe we don't even have a group, right? So start with that and then slowly increase the participation coming from your users. And I think that will help you like continue to innovate in a more Web3 manner. Does that make sense?
Hey, that question.
Look, I finally unmute myself. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking about like right now, for if you talk about methodology and how people like do product management in the large companies, they're very similar, right? Like all the large companies, if you work on similar product, if you work on similar area, their learnings can be shared. I'm just thinking like, it's kind of like I've heard, I listened to some podcasts about Web3 and they're talking about like the PM from Web2 area can actually transit their skills in Web3 area. So, and also plus my mentor just quit the job and joined Web3 community. So I'm just thinking like, what can we do right now? And what materials you suggest us to learn to start with, and how can we like, basically do something to contribute to the Web3 community?
I think that's a very good question. So I really believe that in order to learn something, you have to do it. So for example, if you still don't have, if you're really interested in understanding what's happening in crypto and you don't even have like a wallet, then I think that you have a problem there, because you have to go through, and I'm not saying that you have to put in money, right? Like opening a wallet or a MetaMask will require you to sign up, but actually it can be zero, it can be empty. If you're willing to invest something, then you can start by buying like a very, very small amount of Bitcoin or Ethereum. I assume because this is a bunch of PMs in the audience that you have finished those tasks, right? So what's next? Then you think about, okay, what are the differences between this different chains, and what makes this chain special compared to other chain? And if you're looking for exact resources, I think there's no one website that will answer everything. So certainly what I do is I follow certain people that I know are expert in certain areas, and then I just search directly either on Twitter in the US or on Google, and then look at different articles because it's like asking, how do you learn about the internet? That is such a big thing, right? So I think you have to figure out, okay, what part of the internet do I want to learn? And then find the expert in the site that is related to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And another question I have is, you just talk about the power of community, and in Web3 area, everybody could be a contributor. But my question here is, right now, if you think about the traditional hiring process, where like how big companies find their quote unquote partners to like work on the same thing, there are a lot of procedures. How do you deal with the credibility or like the trust problem in the community? How can you make sure that the whatever, like the product you are building or the thing that everybody is contributing is actually good enough to move forward?
Oh, that's a good question, because that's very hard to do, because even if everyone can be want to be a contributor, the quality of work is harder, right? To know. So my advice is, it depends on. I think you should have smaller tasks that will allow people to prove themselves. So for example, for us in Odyssey, some people want to help with the community. The first thing that I do is ask, okay, what do you want to do within the community? They want to host an event, they want to be a chapter lead, or they want to help fix the onboarding. And then maybe ask the person to leave feedback in a document just to test how they think, and then test their ideas, how they think, and then how they execute. And then after a few of that, if you think that this person isn't ready yet, then ask the person if they want to continue learning or they want to do something else. Because sometimes if the person this is actually one of the problems that we have at Odyssey. There's so many people who want to write, but then if you look at the writing, like because people are new, like the way of writing is not good, that some of our team members have to rewrite it. So I think those are harder tasks to think about. But you can ask, instead of writing a full essay, you can ask them to write like a paragraph, right? So in short, try to break down the task into smaller work so that you can evaluate the quality even before you go into a bigger project.
Got you. And another question, I have too many questions. I'm just like letting George remind you here and ask all the questions to you. Another question I have is, because you've been product manager for a long time before, and right now you are starting this community, you are like leading this community. So my question is, like, when you are a product manager, how, like, when is the time that you find yourself like pretty prepared to do something new, and how do you create to build your own credibility in this community right now?
So when you say prepare to something new, you mean start a new product or product feature within the company?
No. By something new, I mean like joining the Web3 community, because like
I see. Okay.
Yeah, because
that's a bit.
Well, what I'm thinking is like Web3 is super new at that time when you first joined, and like nobody knows, like there are probably a lot of things to be defined. So when do you know you are prepared to start something new, and how do you build your credibility in this new community?
Oh, that's okay. Wow, you come prepared for this event. You're asking very, very good questions. So like, let me just tell a story. So when I joined DAO Masters, I joined that group because they're doing DAO tooling, and I want to understand what are the different tools that DAO like DAOs are using to help grow community, right? And then as I joined the group, I did a little bit of marketing there. I realized that, okay, the DAO ecosystem is actually not that big, and I want to do something bigger. I've done one season of contribution in terms of doing a tool review myself, and then doing some events. And I know what's going to happen on the next season. And then I ask myself, okay, I know what's going to come based on the plan for the next season. And then I ask what skills do I want to look, do I want to learn, and what kind of product or project do I want to do. And I didn't want to focus that on my next 3 months on DAO Masters, because I wanted to learn more about like platforms of blockchain as a whole, as opposed to just DAO tools. So I shifted my attention to Odyssey DAO because they are onboarding, like it's a learning DAO for people who are new to Web3. And I think it's a much bigger market, and it will allow me to understand not just DAO tooling, but also like no code tools or wallets in a different way. So long story short, this is a new area that I want to know. And then at that time, finishing three months, I said, okay, I'm good with what's happening here. I want to try something else. And then actually at Odyssey, I'm doing it for a while now. But I told myself that after 3 months, okay, I want to learn something new, and I want to learn more about play to earn. So actually soon I will join like a play to earn startup because that's what I want to know next. And then to answer your question, how do you build credibility? You just continue to look for products that are interesting to you. Use the product yourself, and then try to create it, leave a review, write a content, or share ideas directly to the people working there, to their communities, or post it or publish it. And this is not really anything different from Web 2. Like if you want to apply in Spotify, right? Some people actually either create a mock or give suggestions or write a Medium post or a blog about it. You can still do that in Web 3, but the difference is you can actually look at the community, look at the plans, and have a much better sense of what's happening, because now all of these ideas is more public, as opposed to you don't know what's happening in this Web 2 company. You make a lot of assumptions.
Gotcha.
Okay, that was a very long answer.
And another question I have is I'm thinking like blockchain as a technology already exists for a long time. It starts from 2008, and from that people invest in crypto, and they start to believe. Some of the people believe more in blockchain than other people, but it's been more than 10 years right now. And in terms of Web3, I feel like for the public, they always have a misunderstanding. Like when people talk about Web3, they feel like, what is Web3, right? It is crypto. They always have this misunderstanding and confusion. And the question I have is, what is your vision in Web3 area, and what do you think, or how do you think we can do better to educate the public?
So I guess you go back to what makes blockchain different, right? So not to go all academic here, but blockchain is basically trust that is code, like built on code, and that code is built on smart contracts, right? And then you execute it without any middle person. That's the one of the definitions that you hear a lot. And then because of that, I think you have to go one step of that definition and explain to people that, okay, this is done in a public record way, like immutable or cannot be tampered way, and more openly, that will then give rise to people having their assets and identity that is portable. And then you can generate new assets like NFT or tokens around it, right? And then you have to go further and explain, what does that mean? Well, if you have an NFT, that means that you have this asset that you can associate with other people to build a community, or you can have a utility around it. So I guess what I'm saying is you have to, let me answer your second question. In order to help others, I think we need to do a better job as a PM to tell a good story on what are the different pieces of these crypto, and together, what change can they do that you cannot do in Web2, because that's missing. So just like trying to always think about it from a use case perspective is super important, because explaining that it's fast, it's cheap, transaction fees are low, isn't enough for people to understand what's happening. And then in terms of the vision for Web3, it's the vision is really to build an internet owned by the people, right? And it's very, very idealistic. So clearly it's not yet realized, and people are still trying to figure out how to make that work. But I think just explaining it from a use case perspective, to say that, okay, did you know that if you're a digital artist, like they only get X% of the profit because a lot of it goes to the record labels, but in Web3, they can directly sell their collections and music, and then bake in some royalty inside of it without having to rely on big corporations. So I think those are the to me, the promise of like allowing people to be more independent and have custody on their asset is something that I think is a really good thing that Web3 is trying to do.
Got you. It sounds like a lot of work to do, a lot of storytelling to do, and a lot of like putting into the real cases on a daily basis for others. It's actually a great way to spread the story. And my last question is...
actually, for this question, I think there's an interesting thing we can delve into here. So I actually had a conversation with her about like how people do growth differently, like with Web3. So with a lot of like airdrops, NFT membership, community buildings. So, but she's not convinced. Like I'm not even sure like why she's not convinced. Maybe I didn't do a good enough job. So maybe you can share some of your during our last conversation, some of your questions and concerns about like growth related tactics, new tactics in Web3. So like if you still remember like what kind of questions you have in mind that makes you not convinced, so maybe we can delve a little bit into that and chat a bit.
Yeah, this becomes to what persuasion right now?
No, it's not persuasion. It's just a discussion. Yeah, because I think it's just kind of a good opportunity because to talk a little bit about this. Yeah. Because obviously, growth in Web2, and Mark knows a lot about growth in Web3. So I think he'll be a much better person explaining some of the nitty-gritties. Yeah.
Yeah. The question I had at that time was basically to think about the ideas coming from my community, right? I also have a community, and I also like see all kinds of ideas every day. And one thing that we always educate new product manager is when a user have say what they need, it probably is not something they need, right? It's not going to be the direct user requirements. So I'm just like wondering what we can do for the Web3 to actually know that that person from the community is trustworthy, and we can depend on him or her to become a contributor. And to spread this more broadly, how can we like basically make the make the community or make the like group of contributor more like strong to support a good product?
So let me answer the first question. So there are many ways to answer it, but one way is first you look at the person's work, right? So sometimes if there's someone who's interested to step up in a project, I just like look at the community and then the messages that this person posted, because that will give me an idea of how this person thinks. And then I also look at how this person, like what this person did outside of the community, because like this person will have a public profile on LinkedIn, on social media, like Twitter to be specifically in Web3. Like just those two are enough, and then you see what kind of messages they're posting, and maybe they have a Substack or a Medium or a Mirror blog, right? I think like in Web3 you have to show, like especially in this space, you have to show versus tell. So I think the way this person posts like the content that this person posts is a good way for me to evaluate if I can trust. And then the second aspect of that is the character. So how this person behaves is something that you can also monitor. So is this person kind, like empathetic to other members? And then if it's all positive, then you get a better sense of whether you can trust this person. So I don't think that's any different from like evaluating a future coworker, right? Like you have to look at all these different signals. The difference is the amount of data that is available is probably going to be different. And then if you're working if this person will come directly from the community, then actually you have better evidence whether this person is responsive or active or not. Because candidates interviews in tech companies right now, it's like 3 45-minute sessions, one full on-site with 5 people. And that is actually, you can argue that that is even worse, right? You're just like, this like 8 people is deciding the future of this candidate. When in a group, you can actually ask your other fellows for potential feedback. So that said, I think there is some benefit in having like a good process, because you're making sure that the quality of candidates is consistent with the culture. Because culture is very hard to do when you don't have any like guiding principles and values, and that a corporation is very good with that.
And if the community spread to more like public, and I assume at that time, like it's just like Clubhouse, right? Like when Clubhouse first founded, they have this procedure of inviting people, and if you get the invitation, you can join the community. And right now, the number of invitations is too many, and the community is just like not as good as before. So, like, do you see any risk when the community spread too fast, or like, you know, any concerns?
I think it's, of course, yes, the speed at which the community grows is going to be have a good, like a big impact on the closeness and the tightness of the group. But I will be more concerned in terms of how they got into the community, as opposed to like how big, like how fast it is. So what do I mean by that? When you bring in a community member, what brings people together is 2 things. There's the intrinsic motivation, that internal, and then there's an extrinsic one, right? The referral ones are actually very extrinsic. So I'm sharing a referral link because I want to show other people that I got in early. I have 2 links. I want to appear like I'm in this exclusive group, and I want to show that to other people. But that is very external focus. What makes you stay here is because you know these people around you, and you want to be surrounded by smart people, share your learning, and learn from others. And that is something that is stronger than rewards and referral bonuses. So that's the reason why I can see your people having doubt in terms of how to build community in crypto, because airdrops and tokens aren't really strong enough, people will leave if they find a higher amount somewhere else. And I think this is something that people don't understand. Like, you cannot just reward people with money, and that is not enough to build a strong community.
And before I ask my last question, there is another question in the chat.
I think that might be the question from me.
Yeah, you can do it.
Hi, Mark. My name is Rachel Wong. So I saw you join the Indian Blockchain Summit before. So I guess you probably have experience dealing with market besides US, like South or Southeast Asia. So my question will be like, maybe could you share some insights about the Web3 startup opportunities in the perspective of geographic locations around the world? So for example, like in China, because of a lot of policy restriction, it might not be a good place to start a company about Web3 at the current time. And the situation might be different, from in case of country by country. So could you maybe share some of your insights or experience about, how the Web3 opportunity is formed around the world? And if we want to start a company in this area, which geographic location would you recommend us to do to start from?
Yeah, that's a nice question and a very big one. So I'm not an expert in everything that's happening around the world, but I think you will see that certain areas are. Let me start with who's using like blockchain, right? You will see interesting data around emerging markets, for example. So in certain parts of Africa or other like Latin America and South America, there's a lot of microtransactions and people using the wallet because either it's expensive or long process to go to the bank, or it's expensive to do remittance, right? And this is like in different emerging markets. So like blockchain is a way for them to do send money and make payments easily at a lower price that is faster and cheaper. And because of that, in those areas, you will see different fintech type of product showing up because they want to build the use case around, okay, how can we address this case that this person is sending a few dollars every day in a high volume way, as opposed to other scenarios, for example, in the US. So because of that, the startup is defined by what is the need of the people in that area or what they are doing. Another example is like Southeast Asia, right? So you probably have heard of like Axie Infinity and other play to earn market because because of the difference in opportunity, like people there can earn this amount of money that might be small in the US but very large in that country. So you can see a lot of like play to earn model coming up in companies and DAOs being created in that area. And then actually in the same region that is there's a lot of like people using social networks, right? Like Facebook and Instagram. And then you can see that there's also a lot of passion for NFT collections. Like if you look at the stats in like Malaysia, Philippines, like Vietnam, Singapore, the penetration for NFT there is high. So what does that mean? Going to your question, there's a lot of like interesting like NFT marketplaces and artist-related marketplaces that are showing up in that region because of that. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does add a lot of insights about marketing in Southeast Asia. It definitely answers the question. Thank you for that. So are you like personally maybe thinking about like doing something in Southeast Asia or other countries besides the US?
There might be some. So actually my profile is not complete right now because I'm doing some projects that are very early on. But I do want to help emerging markets because I think for the longest time, the opportunity is imbalanced. And I think now because of crypto, because of the way people work in a remote fashion, there's a lot of opportunity to help other markets. So so long story short, I might be doing some soon, but not right now.
Got it. Thank you.
And by the way, I think that's an interesting question because regulations change not only country by country. It's almost like every 3 months a new regulation will show up, right? So for example, like India government was pro and against this technology, and I think that's also changing the way like founders think and the way products are being built.
Got it. Yeah, I heard about the story that if you work in this industry, you need to check the like policy like pretty much every day because it changes too fast.
Exactly. Good question. Thank you for asking that.
Thank you for sharing your insights.
Yeah, and then if, by the way, if you have, if other people here have are familiar with such markets too, drop it in the link. I'm always curious to know what's happening in other areas.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I know someone doing, blockchain. I just call it blockchain startup in India for a few years. And I can share his profile with you later after this.
Profile and like product. What is this blockchain? And then if you're following Polygon, right? It's like that is huge in India. Started by founders there as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot going on depending on who the initial companies have started, and then the capital and investment flowing in as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Just follow up on that. Which play to earn company you're joining?
We will know next month. I will.
Okay. Sure. Okay. So you decided already, huh?
Oh,
Yes.
so I guess my follow-up question is pretty related to the news that we just know. So like my question is, I'm very curious, like what is your plan for your next like 3 to 5 years, and like how do you see yourself in this new area?
I think like this question actually is not like blockchain specific, right? Like if you think about your career as a PM, you always have to think about there's this concept of ikigai, like what you're good at, what your skill set is good at, what are the opportunities, what will help the world, and then what will pay you. So I think to me, because I've been in product for like 12 plus years, I know that I really like consumer experiences. I love product management. So thank God I'm not trying to become someone else in terms of job function. And I want to be in the cutting edge of technology, right? So even at Wise, I joined that because the innovation there is producing product at very cheap prices, and then crypto, of course, is all new. So like having those principles is something that will guide me the next few years. So I'm actually like, if you ask me what's going to happen, I don't know, but I know the values and the skills that I live by. So I will let that guide me. And then, of course, in terms of if you're looking for a more specific answer, I would love to lead a product team. I would love to lead a community and growth team. But the reality is things are just changing all the time. That like last week, like look at like where Terra Luna is and look at where it is now. And then like it's just crazy in this space. So I'm not even thinking about 3 months later. I'm thinking about, okay, what's the hot topic for next week, and then how do we contribute to that product?
Yeah, it's fun.
You didn't buy any, right? You didn't buy any Luna, right?
Me or you're judging?
No, she definitely won't buy anything at this moment.
Oh yeah, but I already lost money, so.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
it's wait for that, but like it's again, of course, you have to be willing to take risk, right? And then of course I should have looked at what other people are saying, and that's part of the journey. So yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because on Tuesday when we have a farewell for my mentor, and I asked him like, so are you prepared? Like, so he just like talk about he get funding from for his own startup in working on Web3, and I was like, so is your funding enough for your maybe like compare with your 2-year salary at LinkedIn? And he was like, no, I don't even think about 2 years after. Like I'm just thinking about 2 months, like how I going to like work on the new product. So it's pretty funny. And there are a lot of questions in the chat, so I'm going to leave it to the host.
Let's see. Okay. Okay, I guess this might be an interesting question. So what do you think would be like incentives for governments to adapt Web3 applications? Maybe maybe speaking a little bit from your like, I don't know, like the United States might be a pretty well discussed case. Maybe from like the Philippines, what do you think would be some incentives for the local governments there to adopt the Web3 applications? Yeah, I think South Korea is having a lot of issue right now because I think they, one way or the other, officially sponsor some of the thing Terra are doing, and yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of the downside, right? Maybe talk a little bit on the flip side, what might be some like positive incentives.
Positive incentive. I actually haven't thought about this as much, but when you think about government, in order to provide services, things have to be efficient, right? Efficient can mean like more automation, more funds and capital, and then less inefficiencies or fraud, right? So if you can build a system of, for example, if you use blockchain for ledger of record so that people can into the people, then that can be an incentive for the government. So I think that depends on, again, it's so that's one. Number two is like again, going back to what people need, right? So if you can, for example, if you go to emerging market and we can show that actually because of this crypto blockchain wallet, people are now able to transmit payments back and forth that can help grow local economies, then that will be helpful to the government, right? Because now more people are actually working and making money, and then that will return allow them to spend and increase local GDP, for example. So I think those translating those use cases into something that will benefit the economy as a whole, whether it's local government or national government, will give incentive for the country to do something about it. So that's what I can say.
I see. Got it. Okay, we have 4 minutes left. Okay, so this might be an interesting take. So can you describe like your life, like when you're in Web3, like, managing so many like DAOs, looking into new opportunities. So it seems like a super packed life to me, like, so how does a day, a typical day looks for you, in the past 1 year? Yeah,
Well, past like it's typical day is wake up, open the different channels, look at the news. Like what
do you look at?
who got
news do you
scammed,
look at?
who got scammed for the week, what are the new investment coming in, because big picture stuff is always interesting, because you get a sense of where the market moves. I look at my community channels to see if there's anything urgent, respond to people, and then go on thinking about what's the next project that I can do. I can do events, workshop, bootcamp, or something else, and then start working on it. So I usually do high level, get a sense of the land, and then try to go more specific throughout my day. And then at the end, I do events like this.
Okay. Do you get burnout, like, because you have to communicate with so many people and check on so many channels and the messages, just all of that? Like, do you ever get that? Like, just
Yeah,
kind of curious.
so that's why you have to, like, especially in Web3, right? It's like 24/7. So you have to build your own schedule. So I take breaks. I don't, sometimes I would not look at a certain, like weekends will be limited, and then sometimes I will take the day off in between, and I'm going to tell the team that I'm not going to be responding today. I'm going to watch a movie. I'll talk to you later. So you have to have the discipline to do that. But burnout is real, and that's regardless of whether you're working in blockchain or somewhere else.
I see. Gotcha. Okay. Let me have a look at the chat again. All right, folks, last opportunity to ask questions. Okay, if you still have any questions, post it now.
Or if you have any questions, just feel free to raise your hand and mute yourself. This is the last one.
Right.
Last call.
Just unmute. Yeah. I just leave the opportunity to anyone who just want to unmute and ask. Okay.
Yeah. So I've got a question.
We got one.
So Mark, what do you think would be the best way to educate oneself in Web3?
I think you should look at what you're currently very interested in. Maybe it's music, fashion, sport. Look at like a DAO doing something around that, and then just like start like looking at what they're doing, and then try to participate. Maybe you attend an event like this, or you contribute to write a content, or I'm not sure what you're a PM, I assume. So yeah, doing research, showing data, or writing content are things that you can do, and then just like participate in one DAO. Give it like a few a few weeks, and then if you don't like it, move on to another one. Because if you do it like there's a lot of trial and error. You just need to execute and stop overthinking on how to join. Just join, like join a Discord, join a community.
Yeah, and for example, if I want to figure out what value can Web3 or can these things add to the current industry, for example, for video games or for music, for whatever. So would be a good way to evaluate this.
So look
to understand this. Yeah.
Look at I'd say look at the startups. So for example, video games. Maybe start with video games blockchain companies. Search for it, and then look at which startups are most popular or receive heavy investment, and then try to understand why. Why is this VC putting money in that company? What is their objective and mission? And then you can slowly you will understand what they're trying to do. Most likely what they have right now is like idea, and then what they're trying to do is like 5 years from now, but at least you can think about, okay, is this something that they can turn into reality, or is this like a dream, right? And then if it's a dream, then maybe that is too ambitious. So you start thinking about whether that is something valuable to that video gaming industry yourself. You can decide for yourself.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, okay. There's a recommend. Thanks, George. You have a very specific recommendation there. Following people is actually a very good approach. So thank you, George, for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if you want to get some practice, it's always a good idea to follow Mark around and just work for him under the community. He's gonna teach you a lot for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely follow.
I follow John. He seems to be deep in gaming. But thanks for that.
Yeah, he's very good. Yeah, John is definitely one of the best to follow in terms of intersection at Web3 and gaming. I think he used to work at Riot, and then responsible for a lot of the strategic investment for Tencent Games in the United States. And I think he's now the GP for Web3, metaverse, and gaming, that type of stuff in Andreessen Horowitz. So, and he writes and publishes a lot. Yeah, it would be a cool person to follow.
Great, thanks for the suggestion.
All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Mark, for the time. I know the day has been long for you. So, really appreciate that you still, get 1 hour of your day to join us for the barrage of questions. And we got pretty amazing answers for all of them. Yeah. So really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for staying. I appreciate that you joined this session.
Thanks, Mark. And for the audience, if you guys have any questions, feel free to connect with him on Twitter and on LinkedIn. Okay, I'm a LinkedIn PM. I must mention LinkedIn. But feel free, and really appreciate you coming and join us today, and really valuable insight you offered, and also about your own experiences and great questions from the audience. Again, thank you, Mark, for joining us, and thank you everybody for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.